Welcome along to episode 5 of the Matchbook Cheltenham Trail. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined as ever by Matt Toombs and Donn McClean, the last episode before Christmas. Matt, it's that time of the year. How excited are you with Christmas racing coming up? And then there'll just be loads of questions. And before you know it, it'll be the Dublin Racing Festival, Cheltenham, Aintree Grand National, and it'll all be over again. So it's an exciting time of the year.
Yeah, and the Christmas racing, trying to work out whether there's any Ante-Post value. A lot of debate about where's Jerry Colomb going and various other horses. I like this time of year to try and see if I can second guess what's going to happen. I've backed Jerry Colomb for the Savills Chase, so let's hope I've got that one right.
Oh, any fancy prices?
No, not particularly, but he's going to be pretty short if he does turn up. And I'm not convinced that Galopin Des Champs will turn up either, so he might be really short.
Yeah, 5.0, 6.0 at the moment. I saw with another horse being taken out there recently. Don, where's Jerry going to go at Christmas? Tell the listeners.
Yeah, good question. He's either going to go to Kempton or Leopardstown, I'd say.
We've got it down to 2.
I've got Jerry Colomb right and wrong, as we've discussed on many occasions. I didn't think I didn't think Sandown would suit him in the silly odds chase over 2.5 miles and good to soft ground. It did. I thought Aintree, after he got beaten at Cheltenham, I thought after Aintree he might be a big price for the Gold Cup. He wasn't, because he won at Aintree, and I thought, look, he did really well to win at Down Royal. Yeah, look, it's going to be fascinating to see where he'll go. I thought maybe a week ago it looked like he was going to Kempton all right, but seems Gordon's not certain. He hasn't fully committed him there yet, so it's interesting. And Conflated might be a big price for the Savills Chase if he does go to Kempton, I was thinking. So that's where I was looking. I thought he'd be a big player in the race if Jerry Colomb goes to Kempton, but yeah, we just don't know.
Okay, yeah, bonus Christmas Ante-Post bet, and stay tuned incidentally Friday morning for the Matchbook Horse Racing podcast, which will cover Saturday's racing and as much as we can without decks of the Christmas race. It's just a pity the way the weekends have fallen this year, but we will and the decks are later than usual. But before we get going, if you are watching on the YouTube stream, do hit that like button, much appreciated. Comment any questions you have for Matt and Don, if you're listening on the podcast, a 5-star review wherever you're listening will be much appreciated. But other than that, we'll get straight into it. We're going to start with a weekend preview. The guys have 3 eye catchers each, and then we'll do a little when to pull the trigger section as well. And we'll start with the December Gold Cup, Matt. So if you want to hit your trend and then take it away on your thoughts on the race. But I thought this was a really, really fun race to watch, really exciting finish, and exactly what we always say this every week. There's always one race that just epitomizes jumps racing.
Absolutely. And it was a really good race too. This is the strongest handicap all season in terms of producing the most festival winners, 12 this century. Some races, including handicaps, are trials for 1 or maybe 2 specific festival races, often obvious which race. Previous weeks, we've discussed some of those handicaps, such as the Coral Gold Cup, become an excellent trial for the Ultima. This is different. Whilst 3 of those 12 festival winners were in the plate over course and distance, you'd only made a small profit backing them. The 12 winners have come across 7 different races, and some handicaps are just strong contests, tend to produce festival winners, but not in a particular race. That said, some horses are gaining experience of handicaps at this stage. Step Up in Trip come March. The 2 Ultima winners, Golden Chieftain and You'll Never Walk Alone, both second season chasers, first season handicapping. This was Never Walk Alone's first handicap. And runners in the Ultima and Kim Muir combined 3 from 29, 16.53% profit. So looking at this year's renewal, these days, well known how much of an advantage it is to be up with the pace, the chase course here, over intermediate trips in particular. But like any other track that suits front runners, you have to judge the pace well. And Il Rodotto and Ferrero Bamboo went a bit hard. The quirky Fugitive had absolutely everything go for him here. He stops in front. He didn't have the chance to do that as he only got there in the shadow of the post. And rewatching the same 2 horses in the finish of the equivalent handicap here on trials day emphasised just how difficult it is to deliver a horse like Fugitive to win a big race. So well done to Gavin Sheehan. Obviously a lot of chat this week about big yards dominating the top handicaps. This was Richard Hobson's 73rd winner and first at Cheltenham. So it's great to see that too. Taking off the cheap pieces is a good call. It'll probably be Fugitive's day in the sun. Looking forward to the festival, given how fantastic a guide this race has been, there are a few to take out of this. None of these had their marks altered this morning. Charlie Deutsch said that Ferrero Bamboo likes to roll. Being up with the pace in the plates are positive. So under a slightly less aggressive ride, he looks handicapped to win a race like that. And unlike plenty of Venetians, he goes on a sound surface. Fakaduderi, shaped like a horse whose connections are hoping to get dropped a few pounds for a handicap later in the season. Since the BHA methodology changed 2 years ago, Grade 2 winners Global Citizen, Third Wind and Favour have all been dropped significantly and then won a festival handicap. Be interesting to see how much they'll be prepared to drop an open Grade 1 winner by March. So Scottish was well there when coming down 4 out. Punters will have plenty of fun following the price of So Scottish on the Matchbook exchange in his races, trying to work out which day is the day. And Thunder Rock, shaped like a stayer to me last year. No surprise this tempo of this race was too quick for him. I think there are plenty of racing fans who'd like to see Max McNeil have a festival winner. Perhaps Thunder Rock's one for the race he sponsors, the Ultima. I think he'll be fine jumping Cheltenham's fences going that sort of tempo. This is definitely a race to have near the top of your list to rewatch when you come to do your festival handicap study.
Okay, yeah, a lot in there, Don. So take it away, your initial thoughts on the race and some of Matt's thoughts on the beaten horses too.
Yeah, no, it was a hell of a race really to watch. You were kind of thinking that maybe they had gone too fast in front because of the gap that existed between the front two and the rest of the field. That said, the sectionals don't suggest that they went way too fast, maybe just a little bit. But I thought Fugitive did really well to win. Like, you know, he was actually hampered when So Scottish fell at the fourth last fence, and he lost a lot of ground then. He traded at 65 and running around about there. So he was a big price in running. It didn't look very likely. By contrast, Il Ridotto traded at a very short price in running. And yeah, as Matt said, Fugitive, like he doesn't like to be in front for too long. And actually, he tried to stop, I thought, before he got to the front this time, but just had enough momentum up to allow him to get up and beat Il Ridotto. You have to feel for Il Ridotto because he's a horse who does run this track well, and Bryony Frost nearly got it spot on. But I thought Fugitive did well to win. Interesting. I'm just listening to Gavin Sheehan afterwards. He did say that he was going as fast as he could go, or as fast as he wanted to go, without bursting him. And I don't know if there's any talk about stepping Fugitive up and trip, but on this evidence, you'd think maybe he is a horse who could go out and trip a little bit. And, you know, they're talking about the 2.5 mile, the Ryanair, or maybe the handicap, the 2.5 mile handicap, the plate at Cheltenham. I haven't seen or read anything about him stepping out and trip, but I wouldn't mind seeing. It might be just an interesting project. Like, he's going to have to improve quite a lot to get up to Ryanair Chase standard. He's got a £6 hike for his win. It's up to 157. He'll probably have to improve the guts of a stone to be a Ryanair horse, to have a real chance in a Ryanair. So it's hard to see that happening. But I just wouldn't mind seeing him stepping out and trip. I agree with Matt on So Scottish. He hadn't got into the race yet. Mark Walsh hadn't asked him for anything, and he was well supported. And Emmett Mullins, JP McManus horse, going over to Cheltenham, of course, he was well supported. So he will be interesting wherever he goes next. And Thunder Rock, yeah, like, you know, he probably will be better stepped out and trip. I think you just have to put a line through the run. He was never traveling. I know they went fast, but he just was never traveling. He's obviously way better than this. So, you know, you maybe give him another chance. All right. Just put it down to too bad to be true, as opposed to a real reason why he underperformed. But yeah, look, I thought the winner did well. And I think Il Ridotto, he's always a horse to be at least taken into account when he runs at Cheltenham over this trip.
Okay, yeah, plenty to take away from the December Gold Cup, with a view even all the way to the Cheltenham Festival. We'll go to the Bristol Novices Hurdle, or the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle, and we'll take a look at the trend map before bringing Don in.
So the trend is that winners are 4 from 13 in the Albert Bartlett, run over course and distance, 45.346% profit. 3 of the losers were placed. And given how unpredictable the Albert Bartlett is, 9 of the last 10 winners having gone off 12.0 or bigger, that's an incredibly strong record as a trial. If you can find good trials for the Albert Bartlett, they're likely to provide big profits betting during festival week, because the winners often go off such big prices. As always, each renewal needs looking at individually, but more generally, punters tend to look at 3 mile graded novice hurdles over the winter and think the runners are just dour old sloggers, won't have the class for the festival. Almost every year, horses with sexy profiles, form at much shorter trips, get overbet at the front of the Albert Bartlett market. So far in the Albert Bartlett, winners have graded hurdles at 3 miles or further, 6 from 47, 43.91% profit. So don't underestimate the winners of races like the Bristol.
Okay, yeah, don't underestimate Shanna. Bob, Don, a lot of the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast team was against this horse, just with Nicky Henderson. If it was a 2 mile, a 2.5 mile, I think being with it was just, it didn't feel right. And but I thought the winner did well, albeit it probably wasn't the strongest race.
No, I thought he did really well, Dan. I was I was against him too. I was with the Matchbook podcast people. Yeah, look, he won over 2.5 miles at Plumpton, having won a point to point. Look again, and Nicky Henderson, Barry Donnelly horse. He's going to be overbet, isn't he? And I think Nicky Henderson had only won this race once. Matt may know this stat on this before, since Remittance Man won it in 1989 when it was run over 2.5 miles. So the stats weren't great for him. And actually, through the race, he came under a ride on the run down the hill. I thought he was a beaten horse. I actually took my eye off him. I was looking to see where the danger to Moon d'Orange was going to come. Moon d'Orange ran well, John McConnell's horse. I thought Kerry Hill ran very well as well. He travelled really well through his race. And he'd beaten Cadell at Kelso on the previous meeting. They put them in. I thought the wrong way around. They put Cadell in at a shorter price and Kerry Hill. In the end, Cadell ran no race. He was way out the back before finishing off quite takingly. So don't know where to go with him, but he's obviously a horse who's got talent. But Kerry Hill, I thought he travelled like the best horse down the hill, and thought maybe lack of experience beat him. He'd only had the one run on a hurdle race before that, and he'd run in 2 point to points. So I think he's a horse from whom there could be a bit more to come, given how well he travelled. And it's hard to say he didn't stay because he kept on. He was squeezed out of it a wee bit at the final flight. But I think probably experience told on him in the end, and he'll be a better horse, I think, for the experience. But Shannon Bob, yeah, I was surprised that they put him in at as big a price as they did for the Albert Bartlett. Like, he was a 16 to 1 or a 20 to 1 shot afterwards. I thought that was big, and I didn't know Matt's stat at that point. And Matt's stat kind of enhances that. And again, in the colours that he carries for Nicky Henderson, and look, the Albert Bartlett's not a race in which Nicky Henderson necessarily excels or dominates, but he's all stamina. Like he was being ridden along. He wasn't traveling best going down the hill and over the second last. He did well, and he showed a lot of tenacity. And that was only his third run ever as well, a point to point, and now two hurdle races. So I thought he did really well, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him as a big player in the Albert Bartlett hurdle picture.
Okay, positive from Don on the winner, Matt. Personally, I definitely think the Albert Bartlett has shifted a small bit. You see some of the horses Woody Mullins has sent there in winners in recent years. Has it changed as a race at all that maybe a Shannon Bob might get outpaced a bit more in a high quality field, even though it is obviously 3 miles and would suit him overall?
You're definitely right. There are more classy types going for the Albert Bartlett now, not least from Willie Mullins. But it does still tend to test a real test of stamina. You get something close to a full field of 20. Last year, 8 were balloted out, and you get enough pace in the race that the non-stayers really get found out in this. It's not one of those races where you can smuggle a suspect stayer into it. And some context, the Bristol form is that hurdling experience has proved a big advantage in this race historically. Coming into the race, horses that had had less than 2 hurdles runs were 1 from 34 this century. The only winner was, as Don said, Nicky's previous winner of this, Mossley, went on to be second to Bobsworth in the Albert Bartlett. And Shannon Bob did a lot wrong. He was a bit keen, he looked green, didn't know his job, but he stayed on really powerfully. He didn't run in bumpers. So as Don was saying, he's had a point, and that win he had at Plumpton was basically a solo. So he could improve hugely for this. Nicky said he's still a bit of a big baby. So whether he'll be up for the Albert Bartlett this season, because it is a tough race, he might be a longer term project. Equally, he could really learn from this and be up to the task. I agree with Don. 21.0, I wouldn't want to be laying that even in such an unpredictable race.
Okay, maybe one to keep an eye on throughout the season, and with a view to the Albert Bartlett. We'll move on to the Premier Handicap Chase on Saturday. This was over 3 mile 2. Matt, we'll go to you for the trend and stick, but just to FYI for everyone listening, this was a gamble led purely by the Matchbook Horse Racing podcast, was put up by nearly all the guys, Broadway boy, and we just saw that price tumble and tumble and tumble, and look, at duty obliged. Yeah,
the stat is that runners are 3 from 97, 64% loss at the festival this century. Last winner coming in 2009. And it was a fair guide to the Oldham and Kim Muir in the early part of the century. And winners like the Real Bandit, Royal Eclair, Midnight Chase went off 17.0, 21.0 and 10.0 respectively for the Gold Cup. But like many of these handicaps, it's declined in quality in recent years with the advent of so many graded conditions races. However, the race got a big prize fund boost this year, up from 60 grand to 100 grand, moved from Friday to Saturday. And that attracted a stronger field. So it might be a better guide to the festival going forward. As you said, Daniel, Broadway boy was the gambler of the day, hammered into 2.3 out, 8. Just about got the job done off 146. His jumping was a bit of a mixed bag. He got into a really good rhythm, but then made 3 mistakes in a row, especially at the last 2 ditches. He was good again at the business end, saw off 3 under through 5, shade cosily. I suspect Broadway Boy's excellently named because I think Nigel will run him in the Broadway rather than the National Hunt Chase. He said afterwards he'll consider both. I love Nigel Twiston-Davis's attitude. It sounds like Willie's a chip off the old block as well. In a world where so many trainers love to duck the issue, find the least good race they can, hope of getting a win, Nigel's usually up for the challenge. 15.0 looks a bit short, to be honest, in what's shaping up into such a strong renewal. But he's only 5, thoroughly likeable horse, and he could well keep progressing. It's a long time until March. Thought Protectorat was interesting. Yeah, Harry Skelton gets knocked a lot. He's in a difficult position here. He'd run 2 Gold Cups, had a hard race in a strongly run renewal in March, didn't go a yard in the Betfair Chase. And as Dan said, they just wanted him to have a good experience here. So he was held up even though he was really keen, didn't really go for him until he was approaching the last. So Protectorat did have a really good experience here, finished with a bit of running left. Now they've got a horse who's capable of winning a good race this season, albeit it's not going to be the Gold Cup. Might be something more like the new Lingfield race. And finally, Melina Girl was up £11 for bolting up in the 3 mile, 3.5 furlong handicap here last month. She was going well and crumpling on landing 3 out. Hard to know how she would have fared, but nothing was going better at the time. She remains of interest for staying in marathon handicaps, and she'd only have to get dropped £1 to be eligible for the Kimura.
Okay, yeah, Don, over to you. One horse that Matt didn't mention there, 300 through 5. Just on that stat of Max O'Neill not having a festival winner, I had heard that and subsequently just forgotten about it. So when you mentioned that earlier, Matt, my eyebrows raised. But he's definitely due a festival winner at some point, though.
He is, yeah, and 300 through 5. Like, he's a talented horse. I don't think he wins as often as his talent suggests he should. And look, in the Badger Ales Chase, it looked like he was going to come and win his race. He didn't. And again, like, he did have the run of the race on Saturday. He and Broadway Boy were up at the pace. They led. They shared the early running, and the sectionals tell you that it was an advantage, as it often is, as Matt was saying earlier, to be up at the pace over fences at Cheltenham. And yeah, when like watching the race live, I thought Broadway Boy was in a lovely rhythm. Then he made one mistake, and then he made another, and then he made another. And I just thought his jumping is unraveling now. Is that he's an inexperienced horse in against hardened handicappers. It's only his 4th run over fences, and he's just going to. His jumping is just going to fall apart, but it didn't. And that, to me, that's down to Sam Twiston-Davis. He was very good in him. He got him back into his rhythm. He didn't panic. They kept their racing rhythm, the 2 of them at the front. But that said, I still thought that those mistakes were going to come and take their toll late in the race, but they didn't. And he stayed on really well and beat a good horse in 300 through 5. So look, he's progressive. He's still a novice, obviously, but he's obviously also a handicapper. He got a £4 hike for that up to a mark of 150. So I'm sure, I don't know, you probably know Nigel Twiston-Davis's modus operandi better than I do, but I think he'd be interesting in another handicap off just a £4 higher mark. He is improving, and I fully agree with Matt. Like the Brown Advisory Chase, nearly every horse you write down these days is a potential for the Brown Advisory Chase. So it's a long list, and I know we're going to discuss the novice chasers later on, but it's a very exciting discipline, as it always is, the staying novice chasers. But Broadway Boy, he's in there, but yeah, I think he'd probably have to improve again quite a bit if he's going to be a player in the Brown Advisory Chase. It looks like a particularly hot heat this year, but again, agree with Madam Protectorat. I was surprised at his SP, actually. I didn't realize he was such a big price in the end, but he ran really well against the bias. He was held up despite being keen, as Matt said. You wanted to be on the pace, and he finished off his race strongly. He was beaten less than 2 lengths for second place behind 300 through 5. It was a big run by him. He's back on track. He's a talented horse. Like, he was carrying 12 stone. He's given more than a stone to everything in the race, which is, it's a big ask. And yeah, I thought it was a nice run from him. And look, he's kind of lost his sparkle now, hasn't he? He's not very fashionable anymore, Protectorat. But yeah, I still think there could be a pot in him.
Very interesting campaign to see what happens there. We will move on to the novice chase that took place 2.5 miles on Friday. Ginny's Destiny was a winner, Matt, and you can bring your trend in, but I have to say, just give a shout out to ITV Racing and Ruby Watch. Did a fantastic piece of analysis. Basically, not proving Grey Dawning would have won, but the lengths lost, the speed lost. As good as we can have, that Grey Dawning probably would have won. Matt, in your opinion, once you bring the trend in, have a takeaway on that finish in that race.
Yeah, the trend is that runners are 5 from 46 at the festival, 9.20% profit. Winners coming in 5 different races. Given this has always only been a Class 2 race, it's been a pretty good trial for the festival. Rather than being specific Turners or Broadway trial, it's a race that attracts good novices. They end up winning different races. The equivalent race at the November meeting is now a handicap, but historically I've often looked at these two races and thought some of the runners are being given a sight of the Cheltenham fences with a festival handicap in mind. And I, like you, I love this new technology that they're showing about the being in the envelope and how much momentum is being gained or lost at fences. I'm probably pocket talking a little bit, but I thought Grey Dawning would have won pretty easily had he got a clear run at that second last.
Yeah, Don, for you, I don't know if you caught it on ITV, but basically this new technology on lengths lost, lengths won. But yeah, it just adds to the debate of would Grey Dawning have would have won. And I think, you know, if you're doing a bet and you'd say 1-4, 1.2 probably would have won, but there's always that question mark. And I have to say, Harry Cobden was fantastic on the winner too, a great ride.
Yeah, he was. No, I didn't see ITV on Saturday, but I've seen it, Lydia and Ruby, on the road to Cheltenham, and now it's very, very good. And the lengths won or lost. I do like the envelope that the 30 meters beforehand, the 30 meters afterwards, and how long it took them to get there. That to me is, if a horse goes in and pops, you can't see that visually. You can't see what you can see a mistake like Grey Dawning made, and obviously that was a massive mistake that he made. But if a horse goes in and pops, you don't know how quickly they've got away from the fence on the far side. You're thinking, naturally, you're thinking if they've gone in and got in tight, they're going to lose ground. But some horses, like, I guess, John Bon at the pond fence, they can be quite quickly away on the landing side, even if they do go in and pop it. But no, even without that, just your eyes tell you Grey Dawning almost certainly would have won. I watched it again this morning. It was a really bad mistake. Like, he lost ground, and he lost momentum, and it had to have taken energy out of him. So it's a triple whammy when you make a mistake like that, especially at that part of the race. So yeah, look, Harry Cobden, he was very good in Ginny's Destiny. He couldn't have done any more than he did, and Ginny's Destiny went on and won it. He got home by 3/4 of a length, and you have to think that 3/4 of a length that Grey Dawning lost at least that. Like, he probably would have won by a fair way if he jumped the second last, even moderately, because after he made that mistake, his winning chance was gone. He was knocked right back through the field. But that said, I thought Ginny's Destiny was good in winning. He jumped really well, and in the handicap chase at the November meeting, it looked like Cribilli was coming and was going to be a danger to him. And people thought afterwards maybe Cribilli would have beaten him. I'm not sure he would have, but on this evidence, well, we don't know. It's a different race and the same horses on different days. But Cribilli was well beaten by him. So I think Ginny's Destiny has probably improved again from the November run. So that was only his third run over fences there on Saturday. So I thought he did well. But Grey Dawning, look, the form of his Haydock win is working out well. Apple away, albeit she did, she's probably going to improve for stepping up and trip from that 2 mile 5.5 furlong trip at Haydock. She was impressed with the last day at Leicester, and Grey Dawning was very impressive in winning that day. He's a horse who can go out to 3. I think they were talking about the Towton chase for him next time. He can go back out to 3 miles, but I do like him over this intermediate trip. I think he's got pace for 2.5 miles, and he's got pace and stamina as well. But he's a horse who he's improving. He's only had 3 runs over fences as well. So I know Matt put him up as an eye catcher a couple of weeks ago after that Haydock race. So yeah, he's a horse that I definitely keep on side.
Okay, yeah, but we'll stick with Cheltenham just with the cross country. We don't have a specific trend. I know Matt just wants to touch on one. So Don, I want you to take away quickly on the cross country. A lot of talk. Manella Indo ran very well again, to reference Ruby. He was very impressed with Manella Indo. I was to a point, but I didn't feel the finish was amazing. But obviously, it's definitely the eye catcher take out of that race.
Yeah, and no, I think he was very good, and it was his first run at the track. I know he'd schooled at the track before, in November. I think he popped over a few fences and he'd schooled here as well. And interesting that Rachel went over just to ride him, just one ride on the day over to Cheltenham to ride him over the course on Friday. And thought, she got him into a nice rhythm. He was pretty well back in the field, but that's not really a negative in this race. I always thought it was a negative. I always thought you wanted to be handy in this race, but you don't really need to be handy. But no, he took to the fences really well. He's a Gold Cup winner and a Gold Cup runner-up running a cross-country chase. I know we've had debates on that before, but that said, the race is there, and that race was there as a handicap. He had to give away lumps away to everything, and he did really well. I'm sure Henry de Bromhead and Rachel Blackmore and Barry Maloney, they're going to be delighted with that run and with a view to going back there. Okay, he's going to be 11 now next year, please God, and he'll be going back there as an 11-year-old. But crucially, of course, they'll be off level weights. It's not a handicap at the festival. So yeah, I know he's got a lot of the headlines from the race, and he only finished fourth, but I think he deserved them. Late Night Pass, I thought he was very good. Like I think that's only his second run over the course, isn't it? It was his first run when he was beaten by Foxy Jack in November. Yeah. Foxy Jacks, and he was good because halfway through the race, you were thinking it wasn't really happening for him. Like Gina Andrews was kind of just niggling him along a wee bit, but there was a point just maybe over the fifth last or fourth last where she made her ground, and suddenly he was in the firing line from being in a position pretty well back in the field or mid-division and not looking to be traveling better than everything anyway. And suddenly he's there. Like he's obviously taken to this course. He got a £9 hike for that up to a mark of 149, so still leaves him £11 off Manila Indo in theory. That said, I think, I don't know what your opinion is on this, or Dan, but I think handicap ratings in this race, in this type of race, they're not as important as they are in normal and over a normal park fences. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think Late Night Pass, for all that he'd be worse off at the weights, I still think he's a player at Cheltenham. Like an aptitude for this course is way more important to my mind than, weights and measures in terms of what weight they're going to be carrying. So, I definitely have him on my mind for the cross country, but if you had to take one horse out of the race, which with the festival in mind, for me, it's Manila Indo.
And yeah, Matt, you're in the agreement with Manila Indo. You're very close to having him as your eye catcher.
Yeah, just the context of this. When using trends, it's important to be aware of when a race is changing. Festival Cross Country became a level weights race 2016. As Don was saying, more recently it's been dominated by Grade 1 horses. So a complete transformation from the days when it was typically won by veteran handicappers. So you don't want to be looking at long-term trends for that. Just talking about Late Night Pass and what Don mentioned about weights and measures. Late Night Pass have been a hunter chaser, and actually he'd finished 2-1-4 in the Fox Hunters over the national fences, not looking to stay an extended 3-2 at Cheltenham. So it's an indication of the leisurely tempo of these cross-country races. He had no problem getting an extended 3-mile 5 here on soft ground. And the reason for that is, unlike Punchestown or Pardubice, where the cross-country tracks predate the conventional courses, at Cheltenham, the cross-country track had to be shoehorned into the middle of the course in the 90s. So it's therefore a lot tighter. Horses are on the turn so much of the time, and there aren't many opportunities to gallop until the business ends. So it's not the test of stamina the trip suggests, and weight doesn't therefore matter as much. So yeah, Manila Indo, for me, he's the perfect example of the modern horse for the level weights festival cross country. Former Grade 1 horse, can't cut it that level now, and given a perfect educational ride out the back by Rachel, and wasn't foot perfect. He landed flat-footed off one of the banks, and then when they sprinted round the final bend, he slipped a little, nearly lost his hind end. I've seen plenty do that here. So given that context, 5 3/4 lengths fourth was a really encouraging mark off 160. You'd hope he'll learn plenty from the experience, and crucially, he looked to enjoy the course and I suspect the tempo of the race. So Gordon Elliott's taken over from Enda Bolger as the master of the cross-country course at Cheltenham. And he produced Delta Work to win at the festival on his country debut 2 seasons ago. He could do something similar with Conflated at this stage. He's got a tried and tested schooling program. But for other trainers, I think the sighter strategy is still a good one. So for me, Manila Indo is a real threat to Gordon's attempt to make it 7 out of 8 in the festival cross country. I was really impressed with this.
Yeah, cross country for any golf fans, fast becoming the live golf of the horse racing world. So you have your Lee Westwoods and your Ian Poulters going to the cross country. Someone said that on Twitter, and I just can't get it out of my head. I'm just picking out the horse for each golfer. I might even put a tweet up about something along the lines of that. Don, we'll go to the Tara handicap hurdle in Navan first. Matt, you have a quick trend, and then I'll bring in Don.
Since this became a handicap in 2013, it hasn't produced a festival winner. Runners being 0 from 19 in handicap hurdles, only 1 placed. Hasn't been as strong a race as you'd expect for a Grade B or now listed race at a track like Navan. Of the 11 runners in the equivalent festival race, the Coral Cup, Cracking Smart did best when 4th in 2020. The best finish of all 24 runners at the festival. So whilst past performance isn't necessarily a guide to future returns, I'd say the December Gold Cup is likely to continue to throw up a lot more festival winners than the Tara Hurdle will.
Maybe not festival winners, Don, but it was a decent race.
Yeah, it was, and the winner was good. And I thought Harvard Guy for Eddie and Patrick Harty, he did really well because he took it up early enough, and he was challenged by Lord Erskine, and he seemed to just always be finding more. I thought he won with a wee bit in hand, and the two of them pulled nicely clear. Lord Erskine, he's a 10-year-old rising 11, but he's a good horse, and he loves Navan. Like whatever code he runs under at Navan, he won an Irish Tsarevich when it was run at Navan a good few years ago now. But he loves Navan. He always runs his race there. And look, Harvard Guy turning into a horse who likes Navan as well. His last swim was at Navan as well, back at the Troytown Chase meeting. But I thought he did well. He got a fair hike now. He was up to a mark of 131 now from a mark of 119. He'd have to be going up to that type of mark if he's going to be a Coral Cup type of horse. And yeah, it wouldn't be surprising to see him turn into that because he's progressive. He's only 5. That was only his 7th run over hurdles. So I think he's a horse who can continue to improve. And yeah, given that he probably won with a wee bit more in hand than the bare winning margin from a really good yardstick, yeah, I think he's a horse worth keeping on side. I take Matt's trend into account all right, and it's never ideal. But you'd think the Coral Cup is the race for him. It was 2.5 miles when he won at Navan last time as well. It's the obvious race for him. And whether he'll run again between now and then, not sure. But it would be surprising if JP McManus and Eddie and Patrick Hardy didn't have the Coral Cup, at least in the back of their minds for him.
Okay, yeah, Matt, quick thoughts on this race?
Yeah, with the benefit of hindsight, if you take out one poor run at Goran, Harvard Guy had actually been progressive last season in some hot maiden hurdles, such as those won by Grange Clare West, Hunter's Yarn, both horses Grade 1 aspirations this season. And then he ran Buddy 1 to 3 1/4 lengths at Fairy House, and Buddy 1's now rated 152, so it wasn't hard to see Harvard Guy being well handicapped in that context. Eddie Harty now holds the licence jointly with his son Patrick. It's never been a big operation in terms of numbers. He's never saddled 100 runners in a jump season in Ireland. But when he gets a good horse, like Supreme winner Captain Seaby, who won a Grade 2 age 12, he knows how to get the best out of them. And he was one of those that, as Don said, he looked to win with a bit in hand. And I thought, yeah, he's one that could go and win again. But £12, I was hoping he'd sort of get 7 or 8. That was quite a stiff rise, and that tempers enthusiasm a little bit. And Lord Erskine, Don said he loves Navan, but although he's 10, he improved about £10 on the flat over the summer. And he ran well in the Brown Lad at Naas last month as well. So maybe that form is better. He's only gone up £2 to 121. And given his profile, he's not likely to be particularly well back. I think the consensus will be that the winners won pretty cosily. So I'll be interested to see how they both get on going forward.
Okay, and then 1 to Thurles. Dan, we'll go back to you for the mares listed novice hurdle, and Birdie or Bust was a winner here, beating Fun. He made a mistake.
Yeah, look, she was a lucky winner. I think Birdie or Bust. Fun was going to win the race, and even again watching it live, when she jumped the last, you thought she was home. You kind of took your eye off her and had to look back to see what was coming in behind, and she just kind of floundered on landing. She was unlucky in that Fun. She's a good mare. Fun. She was a good bumper mare last season. She won on her hurdles debut at Thurles, won nicely, and then was going to win nicely again from a good horse, a good like Birdie or Bust. She's a good filly or a good mare. I know she was pretty well beaten at Down Royal last time, but that wasn't her running, and you can probably judge her better on her run behind William St. Dancer in a Grade 3 race at Tipperary the time before that. So she's a fair yardstick. She's a good mare, but Fun was probably going to win, and probably going to win quite impressively. She won the Grade 2 mares bumper at the Dublin Racing Festival last season. So she's a mare who does have plenty of talent. I know she was pretty well beaten in the Cheltenham bumper, but she was a short enough price for that. So I wouldn't be giving up on not that you would be giving up on Fun. She was an unlucky loser, but she's a mare that you can easily keep on side. It's a good race. This Honeysuckle won this race going back when she was a novice. Shattered Love won it as well in 2016. So it can be a good pointer to the future. And look, Birdie or Bust is a good mare, but maybe a mare for handicaps. Whereas Fun, yeah, I still think she can be a mare who can go take a very, very high ranking among the mares novice hurdlers this season.
Okay, agree with that assessment of the top two, Matt?
Absolutely, on both counts. Assuming Fun hasn't injured herself here, I still think she's a leading contender for the Dawn Run. Although she flopped in the Champion Bumper, she's probably the best backed horse in the race. Shortened from 9.5 to 6.0 post-declaration. It's probably an indication of how well regarded she was. That was her only start officially soft ground so far. So maybe she'll be at her best on a sound surface. She's 13.0 for the Dawn Run. And although it's an embryonic market, I wouldn't want to be laying that. She looks as likely winner as any, just on the vibes of what I've seen. And definitely agree with Don about birdie or bust. Her limitations in pattern conditions race are becoming exposed. But going back to that Joe Mack form that Don mentioned with Williamstown Dancer, she's been left on 125. That looks fair enough, because time might show she had a really improved effort here. And the Paddy Mullins Mares Handicap at the Dublin Racing Festival might be a good target for her.
Okay, we will move on to eye catchers, and there'll be one or two things we might fall back on with the weekend. So yeah, we'll start with you, Don, and take it away with your 3 eye catchers. You've had it tough to narrow it down, so maybe just give us the list of the beaten horses here before you give us your eye catchers.
Yeah, Balboa was one of them. I thought Balboa ran well and stayed on well after getting a wee bit outpaced. Could be maybe a horse for Fred Winter, maybe even stepping out in trip a little bit. Thought was hampered as well at the second or at the final flight, and yeah, thought he did well. But top of my list is Blood Destiny. He was very good at Naas in winning his beginner's chase, and he beat a good horse in Heartwood. And Heartwood just kept on trying to keep tabs on him, kept on trying to get close to him, but he just couldn't. And like Heartwood, he's a second season novice. I know he only had one run last season as a novice, but it was in a good race. The race that Hollow Games won at Navan. Then he was off the track until he came back and ran second behind Grange Clare West in another good beginner's chase at Naas in his first run this season. That was the race in which Franciscan Rock finished 4th, So They Flow finished 5th, and So They Flow's enhanced the form since. Corbett's Cross was 3rd, and he's enhanced the form quite spectacularly since then. Won that really good beginner's chase that could throw up very good horses in the future as well. And Grange Clare West won that race. So, and Heartwood had obviously race fitness on his side going into the race. Blood Destiny was having his first run since Fairy House back in April. But he did it really well, Blood Destiny. Heartwood just, anytime he got a wee bit close to him, he just moved on again. He always travelled better. He went on up the run in and won by 9 lengths in the end. And it was only a 4-horse race, but Spanish Harlem and Landrake, they're both 130 odd rated hurdlers, so they're no mugs, and they were like 20 lengths behind. So it was a big run by Blood Destiny. The time was good as well. And he's a horse who was very, very highly regarded last season as a juvenile hurdler. If you remember, he won at Fairy House, and then going to Cheltenham to the Triumph Hurdle, Paul Townend really wasn't sure between him and Lossiemouth. And Garla Marceau, who finished second, she wasn't in the mix. It looked at the time, it looked like he was between Lossiemouth and Blood Destiny. And Blood Destiny disappointed then. Then he got beaten at Fairy House as well in the Grade 2 hurdle. So he was on a bit of a recovery mission, but this was very, very good. His jumping was really good as well. And yeah, like to beat Heartwood as well as he did, to me, it was a really good performance. And it's 2.5 miles. So where's he going to go now? There's Gaelic Warrior in there as well for Willie Mullins. So it'll be interesting to see how he splits them up. I'm sure he will split them up insofar as he can for a while anyway. But I think wherever Blood Destiny goes now, he's worth following. Second horse is Spillane Tower, who won a good novice's chase at Punchestown. And I thought he did well to win because they didn't go a great pace. He was in behind. He's a horse who probably gets better than 2 miles. Sorry, gets further than 2 miles. It's better than 2 miles. Gets further than 2 miles. And he was brave as well because at the second last, Captain Conby kind of jumped to his left, as is his want. Captain Conby, I'll put him down as a horse who, we've said this before, going left-handed. Whenever he goes left-handed again, he should improve quite a bit because he was out to his left again when Nappers Hill beat him in the Rising Stars chase at Wincanton. But yeah, Captain Conby was out to his left and then just faded. But Spillane Tower, he was brave in going through a gap. He stayed on well to beat firm footings. Arctic Brazil was back and forth. So it was another good rated novice's chase at this stage of the season. And that was Spillane Tower's 5th run over fences, his first win again. He's a horse who I think can continue to improve. And so his third run over fences, not his 5th. He had a good run last time at Navan when he finished 4th behind Facile Vegan in the pocket. He was back in the field that day and kept on to take 4th place. This was a nice step forward from him. And he's got a mark of 130 over hurdles. I don't think he's been given a mark yet over fences, but it might be that he can improve and maybe improve through the handicap route and maybe going up in trip as well. This was 2 miles. Like, he does have an entry in the Grade 1 Faheen chase at Limerick at Christmas, actually, which is interesting. Ooh. But that's over 2.5 miles, which I think could be his trip. That said, he did show a lot of pace here over the minimum trip. at Punchestown in a race in which they didn't go a great pace. So Spillane Star, it'll be interesting to see where they go with him now. But again, a horse who I think is worth keeping in mind. And Madara is the other one at Cheltenham. He won at Cheltenham on Saturday. I thought he did well to win again. He was in behind and he picked up well. It was Harry Cobden again at his best. He rode a nice patient race, let the first three at it up front, and then he turned into the straight. It looked like it was going to be between him and El Excelsior Steo going to the last, but he found lots. He stayed on really well. He's run 3 times now in Britain for Sophie Leach. On his first run, he was travelling well in the handicap chase, that Dancing on My Own one at the October meeting at Cheltenham. Then last time in another handicap chase at the November meeting, he was travelling really well in the race that Triple Trade won, and he just stopped for whatever reason. He was just weak finishing, and he was a bit weak in the market that day as well. But on Saturday, he was stronger in the market, and he travelled well, but he found lots of pressure, and he stayed on really well. He went away going to the line, and he got £5. I thought he could have got a wee bit more than that. He's a lightly raced horse. He's only 4 as well. Now, I know the weight for age scale, it decreases as the season goes on. I think he was getting a £6 weight for age allowance. He was £2 inferior to In Excelsis Steo, and he was getting £8. So that scale is going to gradually decrease as the season goes on. But there's a reason why there's a weight for age scale in situ. He's maturing. I think he's progressing as well. And obviously he goes well at Cheltenham, and a strongly run 2 miles suits him well. So I still think he could be a well-handicapped horse on a rack of 135.
Okay, yeah. Interesting eye catchers there for Donn. Matt, take it away with your 3 this week.
Firstly, Apple Away. Shouldn't really have been catching my eye as such, because I put her up as the novice chaser to follow and the jumpers to follow podcast. But I thought she was really good at Leicester. The feature of that was how well she jumped. She got into a beautiful rhythm, and she's a relentless galloper, and that allowed her to run away from a decent rival, Grade 2 winning hurdler, making your mind up. Owners talking afterwards about deciding between the Mare's Chase and the Broadway. I doubt Apple Away's got the pace for 2.5 miles. In a typical modern Broadway, I'd be very interested in her. Enthusiasm is slightly tempered by what we've been discussing, is how good that Broadway is shaping into. Whether she quite have the class if it turns out to be that good a race, I'm not sure. And Lucinda is aiming Giovinco at that. I'd like to see Apple Away in the National Hunt Chase. That trip would look ideal, but we know jockeys are so crucial in the amateur rider races at the festival, so it would depend on who Lucinda could book to ride. But wherever she turns up at 3 mile plus, she's one to keep on side. Second one is the Enabler. Gordon was winning the Future Champions bumper at Navan for the 7th time in 8 years. Trainer's a creature of habit at Gordon certain years, having certain races he likes to run his best bumper or novice horses in. Seems reasonable to assume the Enabler's one of his best bumper horses. Looked really progressive 3 starts this season. Looks the classic Jigginstan embryonic staying chaser in the making, so no surprise to hear he'll bypass Cheltenham. It's the same owner as Don Cossack, Death Duty and Sandcrow all did after winning this. Instead, he'll stay at home, might have one more run the bumper, possibly at Nace in February, and that bumper still a story one for them last season. And whilst the stat for this reason isn't directly relevant this year, since this became a pattern race in 2004, winners are 42108P112 in the champion bumper. And with Dunguib, Envoy and Sir Gerhard also on the roll of honour, it's been a regular source of high-class horses. And so the Enabler is more one to have ready for novice hurdling in your notebook for next season. And the final one, the Staying Novice Chase at December meeting is now a £19 limited handicap. This was only the second renewal as a handicap, and the first was won by Cork Rambler, so this lot got plenty to live up to. The winner, Are You Wise to That, looks likely to try and follow in Cork Rambler's footsteps and win the Ultra as a novice. John Joe's won that 3 times already. He's interesting, but the eye catcher was Lorney Hill's Everything's on Tick. He was out the back, looks as if he might tail off at one stage, having ballooned his early fences, landing with little momentum. He really warmed up as the race went on, finished strongly, in the manner of a horse who'd learned lots during the race. In the end, he was just beaten 6 lengths in third. He's rising 8, but it was only his 9th run, second in a chase. He'd been running in 0 to 120s over both types of obstacles. They didn't have a rating ceilings here, and it looked a strong novice handicap. So perhaps he was just taking some time to adapt to the tempo of a classier contest. And on his chasing debut, he won at Leicester, beating Animal, who then won in good style at Sandown. Chase form looks solid. He remains of 116, looks progressive and well up to winning an ordinary staying handicap chase off that mark.
Okay, that's our eye catcher section, the ever popular, ever growing popular when to pull the trigger section. Matt, take it away here. So anyone targeting the novices chases, when is a good time to say, yeah, we might have an Ante-Post bet on the Cheltenham Festival?
Well, around Christmas time, generally, all these grade ones. Sometimes I'm betting on the novice chase, particularly the Arkle, which is a thinner division and easier to work out in the autumn. But this year, the races are looking more competitive. And as ever, with Willie Mullins now bringing his horses out later and later, it's harder to get a grip on them. But you ought to be able to do it soon. And the context of the 8 novice races at the festival this century, only 7 were won by horses that have made their debut over those obstacles after the turn of the year. That's out of 152. So based on that history, there's a 95% chance the winner of those races will have run by the end of the Christmas festivals. Only one of those 7 winners was at the last 9 festivals. So it's not as if modern training methods are changing that trend. So I'm trying to get the answer to lots of different questions in the novice chase division at the moment, but a couple of examples are, firstly, how does Facile Vega cope with the sound surface if he runs on one in the 2 mile 1 grade 1 at Leopardstown? I'm open-minded, but my hunch is that Facile Vega is really ground dependent. The one time he raced on ground with good in the description in his bumper season, didn't technically come out the best horse at Punchestown. Jodie Townend couldn't claim her £5 on redemption day. And apart from when going off 1.10 in a maiden hurdle, the only time he's raced on a sound surface over hurdles was at the Dublin Racing Festival when he bombed out. Ground's currently yielding to soft. With the drainage at Leopardstown, unless there's more rain than in the forecast I've seen, he could get a sound surface. And if he proves he can go on that, then he's much more of interest to me as an Ante-Post proposition. If he runs well below form again on it, then I'll be looking to oppose him. The second question is, who's Gordon's number 1 for the National Hunt Chase? Got an excellent record, obviously, generally with staying chasers. So it may surprise some that he's never won the Broadway, but he's trained 4 winners of the National Hunt Chase, 5 if you count Galvin. And Gordon takes advantage of his ability to secure the top qualified riders, historically Jamie Codd. That said, Jamie hasn't ridden since the spring, so whether he'll be available come March is an unknown. But even if he isn't, Gordon can generally call on the top riders like Rob James and Barry O'Neill. He's got the first 2 in the market for Void de Champdou and 3-Card Bragg. Both are entered at Christmas. We'll hopefully learn more about them there. His other obvious candidate is Salvador Ziggy. He presumably isn't going to run over the winter. His form in finishing 3 3/4 lengths second off 150 in the Kerry National puts him right in the mix. That's reminiscent of the campaigns of Tiger Roll and Galvin, who didn't run again after the end of October. So as well as hopefully the form clues from watching for Void de Champdou, 3-Card Bragg, I want to try and get the vibes, especially about Void de Champdou. He looks Jigginstown's best staying novice chaser. And as we discussed a few weeks ago, Michael O'Leary may well want him to go to the Broadway. Plenty of other questions I could have asked, but I'll hopefully be answering some of those questions. And I'll be hopefully having a festival novice chase bet over the Christmas period.
Okay, quite exciting there from Matt. There was a horse I wanted to give a mention, just incidentally on the Leopardstown weather forecast, dry enough at the moment, but 26th and 27th are looking like there'll be decent downpour at the moment. But yeah, one horse I want to give a mention before we go, Virgil O'Brien's Dysart Enos, who's a very impressive winner of the Mayor's Novice Hurdle, and a bit of a stat that I just wanted to put up here. So a lot of the stats that Ruby Walsh was using, and Don mentioned that we saw Ruby and Lydia using on Racing TV, was at race IQ, so at race _IQ on Twitter. So what says classy to you? They say, for us, it's a novice hurdle recording an entry speed of over 34 miles per hour into the last at Cheltenham on Friday. Dysart Enos recorded the 3rd fastest entry speed of the whole meeting and the fastest of every horse into the last. We think she's a rocket. For what it's worth, I do too. And it's very hard to sort of have an Ante-Post bet on the Mayor's Novice Hurdle with a lot of Willies to come. You don't know what exactly where Willie's cards will land, but you know this horse is a guaranteed runner, and I think there's worse bets than the 5.0, 5.5 currently about Dysart Enos currently for the Mayor's Novices Hurdle. Matt, a quick line on how impressive she was at Cheltenham.
Visually very impressive. 2 things to mention about her from the point of view of betting. First one is she is a type who might boil over on the day. She's pretty keen and gets a bit ahead of herself. So I'd be a bit concerned about that. If you fancy her, and I can see why people do, given, as you said, how many Willie is going to bring out and the depth of that race now, I'd be holding fire. You might easily get as big a price on the day.
Yeah, Don, quick line. It's whatever happens, it's great that Fergal O'Brien has such a fun horse, a fun mare to work with. She's going to run once more before the festival. She's guaranteed to run, and I can see a lot of people getting behind a trainer like Fergal O'Brien at the Cheltenham Festival.
Oh no, she's very exciting, Dan. She was very good on Saturday, and that's an interesting stat there. Obviously, the fastest of the whole meeting going into the last, which that's significant. And she's obviously got class. She won the bumper, the Grade 2 Mares bumper at the Aintree Grand National meeting as well last season. She keeps on improving. She was better on Saturday than she had been at Huntingdon on her hurdling debut. So yeah, look, there's a huge potential upside to her, all right.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to her. Some great lines as always from Matt and Don. We'll be taking a bit of a Christmas break. We'll be back January the 9th and then non-stop every week, every Tuesday to the Cheltenham Festival. My thanks to Matt and Don as always. We'll chat to you next week. Enjoy the Christmas period. Don't forget to check out the Matchbook Horse Racing podcast for a full Christmas preview and enjoy the break. We'll chat to you in January. Bye-bye.